Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's your boy, Delightful Kissboy, and today I want to yap about all the time I spent being in a band. When I was in high school through early college, I was in a ska punk hardcore kind of band. I played trumpet. I was a little trumpet boy, and we played a lot of shows, and it was an interesting time. Overall, a good time, I would say. But yeah, I mean, I had a lot of interesting experiences with that, interesting stories, and I think I got a lot of valuable life skills out of it, I think, and I met a lot of weirdos, okay? And so that's what I want to talk about. That's what I want to talk about. This is not me trying to show off or anything like that, because you're gonna find out very quickly that I was an awkward teen, at the time, and it was just it was kind of me. Like, honestly, a lot of this was like me being kind of an outsider in this whole thing and just kind of looking in and observing, okay, because I was like an awkward dude at the time. All right, but yeah, let's talk about it. All right, so let's take it from the top. When I was in freshman year of high school, so for context, I had been in school, and I'd played in school band, and I played trumpet from 5th through 8th grade. When I got to high school, I went to this nerd high school that didn't offer band as a class or like an extracurricular activity, nothing like that. The closest that I could get is that I could bus early in the morning to a different school to attend a jazz band program there, and I said, fuck that, I am not getting up any earlier. So I basically just stopped playing trumpet after that point. To be honest, I didn't really care a whole lot. It was kind of interesting. I had an interesting time with music. When I got into like middle school, that's when I started getting into like listening to a lot of good music and stuff like that, trying to find some cool bands. I was mostly a metalhead, okay? But the entire time, my relationship with playing music was I kind of did it, and I enjoyed it, but I didn't like practicing much, which is, kind of an issue when you are learning to play an instrument, because practice is a big deal, right? But overall, I mean, I was pretty good at trumpet through 8th grade, I will say. I was like first chair in the band. There were only 3 trumpets, so first of 3 was not that big of a deal, But I was pretty good. I just didn't really like practicing. We had kind of mandatory practice times. I was like, whatever. Wasn't really my priority, It was just kind of like, oh, this is kind of a fun thing to do when we play shows and yada, 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 But then, I get to high school, stop playing. I'm not really thinking, I'm not dwelling too much on it. I'm like, all right, played trumpet. We're over it. We're moving on, okay? But then one of my friends hit me up, friends from middle school, okay? So basically, this was a guy, I'm going to call him, I have a list of names here, pseudonyms, Michael, all right? Me and Michael. Anyway, Michael, I was good friends with in middle school, but he went to a different high school. He went to kind of the high school that most people went to after getting out of middle school. He and some other people that I'd known, but I knew Michael, and he was like, hey man, we're trying to switch our band from being kind of alt rock, kind of folk rock. I don't know what the hell they were doing exactly. They're just kind of doing whatever, We want to switch our band from being that genre to ska, all right? Because they were inspired by another local band that was kind of in high school that was pretty good. There was a ska band, and they were like, oh, damn, that's sick. We should try to do that, right? And so they started listening to a bunch of ska music, and then they got inspired, and they were like, okay, we should start doing ska. So what do we need to do? We need to find some horn players, right? And so Michael reached out to me and was like, yo, man, you down to come to practice and just try it out and see what happens? And I was like, sure, why not, Now, for context, I was pretty busy. I was going to this nerd school that had a heavy, school workload, right? And I was also on this robotics team. I was in the mega dweeb, okay? I was doing first robotics, and so that took up a lot of my time. But I was like, yeah, sure, fuck it, why not? Let's try it out. I'll go. I haven't played trumpet in a while. It'll be kind of fun. And so I showed up at James's house. All right, so James I knew from middle school. We took the same bus. I'd kind of just known him a little bit. We weren't super good friends, but I knew him. And I show up at his house, and I remember it was like kind of awkward because I knew Michael. Michael was the bass player, by the way. James was the lead singer, and he'd play like backup guitar at the time, rhythm guitar kind of a thing. And so I show up, and they've got these others. They basically were, what they were doing was taking their old songs, and now the main kind of brains behind the band, the leader of the band, was who I'll call Jerry. All right, and Jerry I'd actually known for a while. I went to Sunday school with him. I used to be Catholic, and we went to Sunday school together, and yada yada yada. Anyway, so James, Jerry, and Michael all went to the same school. They were in the same band. And Jerry was like the person who'd kind of run things. He'd book shows. He'd kind of organize things. He'd get everybody together. He'd write most of the music. I mean, it was kind of a slightly collaborative effort, but generally Jerry was the one who had like the final say in what the songs sounded like, that sort of thing, right? So Jerry had written horn parts for songs that they already had, right? And Jerry didn't know, actual, like, whatchamacallit, like musical notation, that sort of thing. He played guitar. So Jerry is the main guitarist and also kind of the mastermind behind the band. And so we're kind of just, writing out the notes. Like, you just kind of write, like, A and things like that. Because he knew what the notes were, but he just didn't know musical notation, necessarily. So I brought this notebook. I'm, like, writing the parts down. Like, oh, can you do, like, like... We're just kind of workshopping these different songs. So it's also, I should mention, it's me and then I think it was just one other horn player at the time. It was me and somebody I'm calling Isaac, who played trombone. Okay? I don't think that George, who is a sax player, came in later, was in there at the time. Okay, so it was just me and Isaac, trumpet, and trombone. And so we're learning these different songs. And apparently they'd asked another friend to join the band. But the thing was, one of the covers that they wanted to do, so it was basically like, make, the older songs into ska songs, and then also do some covers. And the big cover that they wanted to do, just questionable in hindsight, okay? There's a song by Sublime, all right? Whatever opinions you have of Sublime, I kind of like some Sublime. I can get down with it. But they for some reason really wanted to do a cover of. Okay, the song is called. I'm gonna censor it for YouTube's sake. Date Grape, okay, which is questionable in hindsight, but I was just a fucking high schooler. I didn't know what the fuck was up. I listened to the song. The song is pretty catchy, not gonna lie. The subject matter is, okay, if you look at the lyrics, it's definitely not pro what it's called, okay? It's just like kind of a tasteless song. Ultimately, the person who's doing the wrong thing gets his comeuppance, okay? But it was like the 90s song or early 2000s song, and it was pretty crass and not great, okay? But the tune is catchy, okay? But they asked this other guy who played sax if he'd want to join the band, and that guy was like super Christian. He was like, hell no, I'm not playing a cover called A Date Grape. So understandable, but I'm just like, fuck it, we ball, all right? We're gonna see this through. Let me tell you, like Jerry and James specifically are interesting people. But anyway, so I'm doing this, I'm learning these songs, it's going all right, and then we had a show, so basically it was like, okay, yeah, let me join this band, why not? Let's see what happens. So I basically became a part of the band, and we started playing shows as a ska band. Now, the first few shows we were doing, mind you, they had already been a band, so they'd played some shows before at some local venues or whatever. I don't exactly know what the show booking process looked like. It was all Jerry who was doing that. But they'd been playing some shows, but when we were a ska band, it's like, all right, let's start off with some, like, fucking layups, all right? So we were playing, like, parties, basically, people that we knew. One of my friends from middle school, we played his birthday party, and so we basically like were playing out of his garage, which was a good time. So it was us and then this one other band that was absolutely god awful that kept showing up from time and time. What should I call that band? Because I'm probably gonna have to refer to them later. I don't know. There was shit. There's basically like this one guy who was interesting. Just very punk rock kind of a guy, but he was like this big, like giant dude. Like he was like 6 foot. I'm thinking like 6'5". All right, and he was just huge. Okay, like heavy, you know. And he's like this big punk rocker guy, and he was fucking annoying. All right, but he'd get like butthurt about random shit that we would do for some reason. And anyway, but he played there at our friend's birthday party, and so that's kind of how we kind of kicked things off. And we did maybe 1 or 2 more shows like that. But then our first kind of official show that we played at an actual venue was a Battle of the Bands thing. All right, which in hindsight was a total rip-off. Like, oh my god. Anything like Battle of the Bands, by the way, it's a total rip, all right? Because here's how it works, okay? Basically what you do is, you know, it's going to be at some venue, local venue. You sell a bunch of tickets, right? So the whole deal is that you basically, it's a popularity contest. Who can go out and sell the most tickets? So that's what we'd have to do when we play shows at venues, by the way, would be basically petitioning all of our friends and trying to sell them tickets to come to our shows. Because that was basically how you'd get paid out, all right? But this Battle of the Bands, it was even worse. It's just you sell a fuckload of tickets, and then what they do is it's like there's a bunch of different bands that play back to back to back, and then what they do is, like, I think at the end, or maybe whenever the band is done playing, they have people scream, and they had like a noise meter or something like that. I don't even know if they did that, if they just judged it arbitrarily. But they basically figure out who had the most cheers, or it might have just even been based on ticket sales. I don't even know. But it's basically based off ticket sales, and then you win. And so we ended up winning, okay? And let me tell you what we got for our hard work selling a bunch of tickets. We got $500. $500, and then we got some like recording time or something like that I don't even remember if we cashed it in. I don't remember doing that. It was like you're supposed to get like a certain amount of like time in a studio, but I think we just took the $500 and that was it. All right. it was more just for the exposure, quote unquote. But I mean, nobody at the time, you don't realize how stupid it is, right? But like nobody gives a fuck about a Battle of the Bands thing. The only thing that's going on is that basically friends and family show up for whatever band they're cheering on, and that's all they're looking out for, all right? So, you know, we played this, it was fun, it was cool, we were like, hell yeah, we won $500. It's gonna go to the band fund, you know, which we would use to buy, like, miscellaneous stuff, which was honestly mostly, like, 9-volt batteries for our guitarists' effects pedals and that sort of shit, which would eat through our, you know, savings pretty quickly, but, you know, we're a bunch of broke high school students, right? And so, anyway, that was kind of the trend. I'm going to kind of skip ahead a bit, all right? So, start playing shows. I'm in the band improper, and then we're basically, like, I'd say every 2 to 3 weeks we're probably playing shows on the weekends, like Fridays, or, well, not even weekends. We play weeknights sometimes as well. And we play a lot of times at local venues, getting paid dick, you know? As I said, it's based on ticket sales, and especially if you're playing weeknight shows, there's no fucking way that anybody's showing up for that shit, let me tell you. So we basically get paid gas money, you know, and that's about it. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it went down, and kept playing shows. Sometimes we play parties, you know, things like that. It's all, you know, a pretty good time. I'm trying to think of specific stories, but this kind of went on for like a few years, and after a while, we kind of, like, Jerry started to get to know some of the show bookers, okay? And so we were able to get on some bigger shows. So I think one of the first shows that we got on that was actually pretty cool was we opened for this band called the Toasters, okay, which if you're not into ska, you'll have no fucking clue who these people are, okay? But they were, you know, a reasonably kind of big-ish, like, fucking ska band, right? And the other part of it, too, was that, like, somebody from the Specials showed up. So somebody who played in the Specials showed up and was hanging out backstage because he was, like, with the Toasters or whatever. So we got to meet somebody who played in the Specials, which the Specials is a much bigger ska band. And so that was really cool. We ended up, you know, opening for them, and it was a lot of fun. And let me just tell you, by the way, we were not very good, okay? Our lead singer, James, not a good singer, okay? Me on trumpet, I'm pretty mediocre at trumpet, all right? As I said earlier, didn't really like practicing. I could mostly get, like, the notes down, but here's the thing about trumpet is that if you really want to take it to the next level, you have to do a lot of practice and get your embouchure up, is what it's called. So, like, the way that you play trumpet is you basically put your lips together and go like that, okay, into the mouthpiece. And, you know, that's what's causing the vibration. That's what's causing the sound to go through. You know, you're blowing air, but you're also vibrating your lips. That's creating a tone. And then you're pushing down the different valves on the trumpet. And then that's you know, adjusting the airflow and creating different tones, okay? So you got 3 valves and you're pushing them. And so I was pretty good at, like, doing the, you know, pushing the valves and shit like that, you know, getting the notes right. But the thing is, like, my range was pretty constrained. Like, I couldn't go very high, because to get high, you have to have really strong lips and really, like, a good embouchure is what's called. And the only way that you can do that is you have to just kind of work it out like a muscle. And I just simply wasn't doing that. I didn't have the time, right? And so basically the horn parts that I would get, you know, that I would play would be pretty simple things. And also, like, I mean, if you're playing in, like, a school band, okay, you're playing at a reasonable volume. But I mean, when you're one of, like, 3 horns at these shows and so fucking loud, I mean, you're really blaring, you know? You can definitely turn the mics up, but, you know, sometimes we want some actually, like, blaring horn sound, you know? We're not going for subtlety in a, you know, fucking ska punk band, you know? And so I couldn't play for, like, that long either. We're talking about, you know, like, 45 minutes to an hour tops, maybe, you know? And so I couldn't really, like, I don't know. It was an interesting thing, you know? I should have practiced more, but, like, fucking robotics, man. That shit took so fucking long. So I was pretty mediocre. Lead singer, pretty bad. After a while, he stopped playing rhythm guitar as well, and he was just singing. And he joined, like, the school choir, but he was just not good. Okay. Michael on bass, pretty good. He was fine. And then Jerry on guitar, pretty damn good, actually. All right, he was good. So he was the best part of the band, I would say. Is you know, Jerry on guitar. Later, Isaac kind of stepped out of the band. He was the trombone player. And for a while, it was just me and George. So George joined a little bit later, and he was our saxophone player. But he was from a different high school. And so him and I kind of, you know, we didn't get, like, super close or whatever, but we were both kind of outsiders compared to everybody else because we went to different schools, right? And so it was basically George and DKB in the horn section for quite a while, okay? Now here's where things get a little spicy, all right? Things get a little spicy when a Katie joins the band, all right? Now Katie played trombone in high school. And she joined the band, but she was not good at all, right? So I was mediocre. She was pretty fucking bad, okay? Just straight up, okay? But Jerry wanted to fuck her. Classic maneuver. Oh yeah, join the band, because, you know, wants to get jiggy with it with Katie, okay? Which I could see right off the bat, and I'm just like, oh my fucking god, this chick sucks at her instrument, you know. But we're going along with it. She's playing shows with us. She's really enthusiastic about being in the band. But it's just like, this whole time I'm like, God fucking damn it. I mean, at the same time, I wasn't taking it super seriously because, like, I'm just doing this for fun. Jerry wanted to take this to the next level, you know? He's really invested in it. You know, he's the main guy, which is kind of why I was always so surprised about him wanting her in the band. But Jerry was not thinking rationally, right? He was trying to get down, and eventually they start getting down, okay? Jerry and Katie, they're getting it on, okay? And that's causing, you know, her place in the band is solidified at this point, you know, and I'm not super stoked about it, okay? But then there was some drama that struck, okay? So we were friends with some local bands. One of them was this kind of like reggae rock band that was a good amount older than us, right? But we ended up playing at this venue, okay? And this venue was interesting. It was kind of like a tattoo place. They did a bunch of stuff. It was like a bar, kind of tattoo place, music venue, sort of a deal, you know, kind of an all-in-one package. And some of the people who worked at the local businesses that were like in this little hub would play, you know, they were in these bands. And there was another band there that coincidentally was a ska band, okay? Because this place was kind of like full of a bunch of nerds too. Let me tell you, ska bands, it's like moths to a flame when it comes to drawing in all the nerds, okay? But this guy was like, the lead singer of this band was like a tattoo artist at the place there, you know? Yada, yada, yada. But we're playing a show, and we played with these guys a couple of times. We talked to them like a little bit, you know? But we were more friends with this reggae rock band. And they were playing the show as well. They drove up there. You know, we had to drive a ways out to get this place. And so we play, and then it's like, okay, now Katie's in the band. Okay? And what ended up happening was Katie had been in the band for like quite a while at this point, okay? And we get to the show, we play our parts, you know, and it's like, fine, you know. At the end of the day, like, Katie sucked, you know, but she like, when you're playing live music, especially when the music isn't, like the mixing isn't that great at a lot of these venues, it really doesn't matter if you're fucking up, all right? And if she's like off key, like nobody can really tell. It just sounds like this big wall of sound, right? And you can hear like a few things, maybe pick out a few things here and there. But you can just basically hear there is a trumpet, there is a trombone, and something is happening, and people are, you know, making mosh pits and shit like that, right? But what ended up happening was afterwards, we were kind of hanging out with this reggae rock band, and we're talking, and sorry, Jerry, up to this point, basically, he'd kind of, I talked to him about, and he'd kind of decided that he's going to kick Katie out of the band. I don't know if something happened in their whole, you know, relationship-ish thing. They were never officially dating. It was just kind of like on the side. They were boning down, right? But he's kind of finally come around to the fact that it's like, she's really bad, you know, we need to kick her out, okay? So so Katie, like, I don't know if she had to leave early. No, she didn't have to leave early. She was just off somewhere else. But like, it's the rest of us hanging out with this band, and Jerry just starts talking openly about how he wants to kick Katie out to this reggae rock band. But what we didn't realize is like also somebody was hanging out with somebody from that tattoo artist from the other ska band who was playing. And he's hearing this, and he notices that, you know, Katie has joined our band recently, and this guy is taking a liking to Katie. So he's hearing Jerry talking all this smack about how, oh, like she's going to play a few more shows and then we're going to kick her to the curb, you know, but we're just working up the way to do it. And so this tattoo artist, let's just call him Chaz, all right, goes over to Katie and tells her about it and says, oh, you know, your guitarist is talking about how he's going to kick you out of the band. Did you know that? You know? And so she's obviously upset, and she leaves early. Like, she took a separate car out there, I think, because she had something going on and had to meet us there later or something like that. So she just leaves, obviously. She quits the band on her own, you know. Good for her, right? You know, regardless, like, she wasn't good, but it's like, this is shitty, you know. Jerry shouldn't be going around shooting his mouth off about how we're going to kick somebody out. Keep that internal, you know. But, you know, also Chaz, excuse me, is white knighting here. I don't know if white knighting is the term, you know, but it's like, dude, you don't know who the fuck we are. Anyway, long story short, it's pretty funny. She quits our band, joins the other band, Chaz's band, and starts dating Chaz. And it's just this, there's drama going on, obviously, you know. That was an interesting time, all right? Jerry was none too happy about that. He was a little heartbroken, but like in my head, I'm like, dude, what the fuck did you think was gonna happen, you dumbass? Like, he was being an asshole, you know? Like, but there you go. So there was some drama, there was some rivalry between us and that other shitty ska band, you know, that has been made shittier now that they've included Katie in their ranks, you know? But there you go. So at this point, it goes back to being the George and DKB show on the horns section. And I think around this time as well, we picked up a new drummer. So we'd gone through a bunch of drummers, all right? That was kind of our most fluid position, is that we went through like, I think 4 or 5 different drummers. People would basically join and then quit and then join and then quit and yada, yada, yada. But we finally get this guy who's like significantly older than us, who is like, okay, we're gonna call him Bill, all right? And he's kind of a fuck up, okay? But he's really good at drums. He's really good at drums. He basically works a bunch of different jobs and he just gets fired all the time because mainly the only thing he wants to do is play drums. But he had like an internship at this recording studio, which is cool, you know? And he loves playing drums, but he just cannot hold down a job for anything, right? And so now he's joining a band with a bunch of high schoolers, you know? Which is fine, but he was like, I want to say he was like 25 at the time, 24. He was like a good amount older than us, like 6 or 7 years older, okay? But he's really good at drums, but he's hanging out with us, you know, playing shows with us, all that sort of stuff. But one of the cool things about Bill was because he had that internship at that recording studio, is what he could do is he could basically be working and then tell us when there was downtime at the studio, when there basically wasn't anybody booked, and we could just run in, you know, basically it was like, we would just be kind of on call and ready to go. And we would go drive up to this recording studio and basically get access to all this really good equipment. And we were able to record like our albums that way, right? So we basically have like, you know, like 1 to 2 hours here and there. We just go in, try to bust out our parts, you know, and then mix them real quick and, you know, all sorts of stuff. And then we were able to put together some albums that way. And it was actually pretty cool, you know? It was a cool experience being able to go into a professional studio and, you know, mix all this shit together, all that sort of stuff, record it. It was a good time. Now, our music, you know, wasn't amazing, obviously, and there were parts of it that were pretty bad. But, like, overall, the recording quality was pretty nice on these albums. And no, I will not be putting my music up at this time, maybe in the future, but is not now, okay? Because that might give clues as to my identity, you know, any more than I've already given out. I'm just not going to do that, okay? But maybe down the line, you know, if I come out of anonymity, it will happen. Who knows? But not now, okay? But we record these albums. It's a good time. It's pretty cool. And, yeah, I mean, so that was pretty sick. I'm trying to think of what else. I was going to mention something else that I forgot about. But, you know, we're recording... Oh, yeah, we also played some, like... We played a radio show. There's, like, a college radio station. It was a pretty cool experience. What we did is we went to this college radio station, played a live show on the radio, and then did, like, an interview afterwards. And that was a lot of fun. We were just kind of hanging out at this college. This is while we were still in, like, high school, you know? So that was pretty sick. We played shows with these other bands. Like, some of them were pretty big. Like the Dead Kennedys. I think the Dead Kennedys is like the coolest show that I think we played. Obviously Jello Biafra wasn't in the band anymore, but still, I mean, Dead Kennedys, that's a big name, you know? And so we were able to open up for them, which was sick. And we played at this, you know, music venue. It was pretty sick, you know, that sort of thing. Other shows that are coming to mind, we opened for Dirty Heads, which is like, you know, a medium-ish, like, reggae band, you know? Opened for them, opened for, who else? We opened for Rehab, which they were kind of a one-hit wonder, like country rap band. Now, aka crap, they aren't very good. They had that song like "Bartender, I really did it this time." You know, that shit. So we opened for them. Not very good, okay, but hey. And it's just funny, too, because we get thrown on random shows because, like, we're ska punk, but basically, like, sometimes the show bookers were like, this band is shit and we don't really know, like, who to get to open for them. They just be like, fucking throw a ska punk band in there. You know, let's see what's up. And Jerry was making good friends with, like, the show bookers and stuff, so we were able to just kind of get put on to random shows. And one of those random shows, this memory is just hilarious, was that we opened for this band called the Cottonmouth Kings. The Cottonmouth Kings was a juggalo band. And they basically mostly sing, as their name would suggest, they'd mostly rap about weed. You know, this is back when weed was illegal. You know, it's still legal in a lot of places in the U.S., but it's been decriminalized in a lot of areas as well. But in any case, Cottonmouth Kings, we're opening for them, and like Jerry just agrees to the show. You know, and we show up, and I remember just like as the date is approaching, we're just getting more and more anxious about this show because it's like we are not a fit. We're thinking we're not a good fit for a juggalo show. These people are fucking crazy people, right? Because we don't know, we known like a couple of juggalos, and they're just weird, right? But we're imagining it's just going to be, we're going to get torn apart, right? And I remember it was like the day of the show, and I remember Jerry's like, should we just like bail, like not show up? And I'm like, I'm kind of like thinking, yeah, we should probably just not play this show, right? And I'm hoping for anything to happen so that we don't have to play this fucking show. But we showed up, and so basically we show up, we get set up. At the time, by the way, I had like pretty long hair, okay? And so, you know, we get up on stage, and this dude in the audience calls out the F slur at me. I'm just like, dear God, what have we gotten ourselves into? We're going to get crucified, right? You know, and, you know, because we're the opener, right? And we're playing our stuff, and so we just start playing, right? And we had this cover that we did, which we covered Down Under by... Men at Work, right? Isn't it Men at Work? And we did a ska cover of that song, which was pretty... Honestly, that was probably the best thing that we ever did, was that one cover. Okay? But, you know, we're playing some of our original stuff, and what's crazy, and I don't know if this should be, you know, this is probably an insult to us, honestly, because this is juggalos, but they're getting down. They're loving it. They're having a great time. They're going around, you know, so at ska shows... They'll do, you know, sometimes we're ska punk, so there'd be like mosh pits and stuff like that, but there's also skanking circles, all right? If you're in ska, it's where you do this kind of like little dance as you're going around a circle, and, you know, it's kind of fun. It's a pretty simple thing, you know? And so they start skanking, you know, and all these juggalos are getting down with what we're doing. They're like, hell yeah! And then we start playing our cover of Down Under, and people just lose their fucking minds. They're like, fuck yeah! Like, they're screaming, they're skanking, and it was a great time, okay? So, what I thought was gonna be our worst show ended up being this awesome time, and so we're taking, you know, all of our stuff down, and the front man for the Cottonmouth Kings. So basically, there's this guy that they have that I don't even know if he'd do anything in the songs, but he was just kind of their front man, and he was like this creepy clown makeup guy. He had all this clown makeup on, and he looked like a total freak, and basically his job in the music videos was just to act like a fucking weirdo in makeup, you know? And so you think, like, this dude's insane. But he helps us, like, take all of our equipment out, and he's like, great job, guys. That was awesome. That was great. And he's like the nicest guy ever. And we're just like, what the hell just happened? Obviously, we did not stick around. We did not stick around to hear the Cottonmouth Kings. We're like, we got to get the fuck out of here, okay? But the crowd loved it. You know, once again, is that a testament to our skill? I don't know, because I would say the people who are listening to the Cottonmouth Kings may have had questionable taste, but there you go. That was one of the better shows that we played. People were into it, man. They were getting down. And that's kind of one of the things that I've noticed, by the way, is I think Channel 5, so you know that Andrew Callahan guy? It was either him or, what's that dude's name on YouTube? Brendan Buckingham went to the Gathering of the Juggalos and was doing some footage on it. And everybody seems chill, okay? Everybody seems chill. They're a bunch of weirdos, okay? But, you know, sometimes the groups of weirdos are some of the chillest people around, to be honest. Now, obviously, somebody screamed the F slur at me, which is not great, you know? But, like, overall, everybody was pretty nice. And, I mean, Danny Brown, who I love, plays Gathering of the Juggalos most years, I think, which is pretty sick. But there you go, you know, lesson learned, don't judge books by their covers. Anyway, let me think of some other funny stories. You know, on top of that, we started playing bar shows for a while, which was a little bit interesting because we were in, you know, high school, right? But there's like laws where underage performers can basically go onto the stage at these bars as long as they aren't allowed into the general bar area, I guess. And so we would kind of play these shows. And here's the thing. The reason we started playing bar shows is because this woman approached us and was trying to basically like act like our manager for a while, which we were kind of going along with for a bit because she knew a lot of the local bars. And she was basically able to book us. But she was like, okay, you guys need to learn like a bunch of covers, right? Because these, you know, I think one of the things too is I think one of her daughter went to the school that like Jerry, Michael, and James went to, you know, that sort of a thing. So I don't know. Somehow we tangentially kind of knew her, you know, but she was booking us these shows and she was, you know, taking a cut of what we were getting paid. But even with that being said, we were getting paid so much better for these bar shows than we were any of these venue shows, because the venues, once again, were basically just paying based off of ticket counts, you know, for us at least. You know, I'm sure that some of the bigger bands were getting paid more, you know, but we were being paid squat, Betty. So these bar shows, it wasn't paying a lot, you know, it was paying reasonably more, you know. And so we learned all these covers. One of my favorite covers that we did was we did a cover of Gin and Juice by you know, Snoop Dogg, and it was a ska cover. And I remember like we had this thing, you know, so I still had a pretty deep voice back then, and like our lead singer didn't, you know, so it was like he would sing the main part, you know, rolling down the street, you know, that sort of thing. And then I would come in afterwards and I'd be like, laid back with my mind on my money and my money on my mind. And like, people loved that part because it was just like, what the fuck is going on? So I'd like go up to the mic, you know, and we play these horn lines. And I'm just like, laid back. That was a good time. All right, playing some of those bar shows was a lot of fun. Eventually, we parted ways with the manager, quote unquote, because I don't know. I can't remember even what happened. I don't think it was super dramatic. It was just kind of like we weren't really making much money, and it was like, let's just fucking do our own thing, you know. So that was an interesting story. Let me try to think of another one. There was some band drama one time, which was fun. So there was like a venue it was this tiny venue that was owned by this guy who was in a local band who we'd played with a couple times. And so we would play shows at this venue pretty regularly. But they were basically like volunteers from this other band who was one of its local hardcore band. And they would kind of run the shows. And they were volunteering their time, I think. Maybe they were getting paid a little bit. But they would do like the sound and stuff like that. But they weren't like super invested or whatever. And it was just a tiny venue and it just sounded like fucking shit, you know. But in any case, we kind of knew these guys a little bit. At least our lead singer did, James. And what ended up happening was we played a show one night, and James followed one of those people on Twitter. And this guy tweets out something about talking shit about ska bands or something like that. you know, because like right as we're playing our show. And so James knows that this is a tweet about us, all right? So he gets up in this dude's face, all right? This other guy, I'm just going to use this guy's real name because it makes it funnier, because as you'll see later, this guy's name was Shaq, okay? And so James gets up in Shaq's face and is like calling him out, you know, and making this big stink at the venue still. And we're like, you know, we're taking our equipment out, and I remember I'm outside, okay, and I see Michael hurriedly coming out with his bass amp, throwing it into the truck, and then he runs back inside, and then I hear a commotion, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Okay, so this is apparently what happened, because I didn't witness any of this, but this sounds hilarious. It's so funny too, because I know Michael, we're still good friends, he's a good guy. I'm going to be going to his wedding soon, actually, but cool dude, you know, and he's usually not like this, but he was set off, all right? So apparently what happened was, you know, James is arguing, getting up in Shaq's face, and then Michael walks by with his bass amp, he's carrying it, and he's like, what the hell's going on here? And apparently Shaq, like, said, don't worry about it, and, like, pushed Michael, shoved him while he was holding his bass amp. And so Michael, that pissed him off, so he, you know, comes out, that's why he's carrying his bass amp out, hurriedly, you know, throws it in the truck, runs back inside, goes, like, right up to Shaq, and apparently, this is what he said, he basically just palms him in the face and, like, pushes his head back, okay? Now, Michael isn't, like, a big guy, but he's really tall, all right? So he just goes up, grabs his face, and, like, pushes his head back, and they start, like, getting into a fight, and then we ended up, so they were the volunteers running the thing, so they kick us out. They say, get the fuck out, you're never playing here ever again, you know, because they're calling the shots that night, you know, and so we're banned from the venue for a while, and we have this beef between us and this band, and but then later, the guy who owned the venue, who we knew also, heard the story and heard what happened, and then I think, like, Jerry or James or somebody explained to him what happened, and he was like, oh no, that's fine, you know, you guys could play here again, you know, but it was super awkward because it's still, like, Shaq and those guys were running the place, so they, basically, it's just like, we'd show up and there'd be kind of an agreement to, like, not make eye contact, they'd begrudgingly do our sound for us, and it was great, that was a hilarious moment. And this is going kind of long. I want to kind of wrap this up, talk about the tour we did. We did about a 7, I think it was like about a week-long West Coast tour. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to say, like, from where to where. But we did a West Coast tour where we went basically all the way up and down the coast playing I think it might have been 10 days. So it was like 1 to 2 weeks. And it was a lot of fun. We played shows basically every night, and we would just kind of go down and we had, like, we didn't really plan it out super well. That's what I would say. We're just like, all right, we have to play these shows. So Jerry booked these different shows. We didn't book any lodging or anything. Also, I should mention, we had a band van, okay, which is basically this big white serial killer van, you know, like painter van, that Jerry had bought for $3,000 because Jerry at some point had gotten an inheritance because I think, so, like, Jerry was adopted and I think his real dad died, and so he inherited about, like, $70,000, I think, when his dad died, and let me tell you, he blew that shit, all right? But we're not going to get into Jerry's financial habits. Questionable. I'm going to be seeing him at the wedding, actually, pretty soon here, so it'll be fun catching up with Jerry, learning what he's been up to. But in any case, you know, we do this tour in this big band van, and oh, actually, okay, I want to go back to why I mentioned that Shaq, it was a funny thing. Sorry, I left that open-ended. It was just because we kept making jokes about like, oh, that's how I beat Shaq. Shit like that. Oh, fuck, okay, I'm gonna have to blur out, note to self, blur out Michael's real name. Okay? Alright, so I'll go back and censor that. Okay, note to self. But that's how he beat Shaq, alright? But in any case, fucking, what was it? We're on this tour, we're playing these shows every night, and there was some interesting shit going on, alright? So, I mean, we're basically living out of this van, and most of the nights we were sleeping in rest stops and Walmart parking lots in the van. And there were 5 of us, okay? It was me, Jerry, Michael, James, and Bill. Now, okay, I gotta mention, this is a sad part of the story, by the way. I forgot to mention, George, unfortunately, he was into longboarding. He would longboard without a helmet on. He ended up getting into an accident going down a hill, and he had severe brain damage, which is still affecting him to this day. Very sad stuff. It was like to the point where we weren't sure if he was going to live. Completely flipped his life upside down. I'm not going to get into it, and it bums me out. It bums me the fuck out when I think about it, because he's a good dude, and he didn't deserve that. And I mean, obviously, he should have been wearing a helmet, you know, but we were in high school, kids make dumb mistakes, and yeah, that one kind of fucks me up, so I'm going to move on as quickly as possible because, yeah, I don't know, that was not great, okay? But in any case, George no longer in the band, for obvious reasons. So it was the 5 of us, we're doing this tour, and we're basically playing all these shows. Okay, that was a bit of a buzzkill, but we're getting back on track, okay? Yeah, okay, sorry. Playing these shows, and we are mostly staying at, like, rest stops and stuff like that. But it was kind of fun. We'd stay at people's houses and things like that. Sorry, just, you know, give me a sec, I'll be right back. Alright, we are back, and talking about the tour. Alright, so yeah, we play these shows, and we booked like a motel like once, I think, but mostly we're just sleeping in the van. And we were staying at people's houses, people that would like put us up after shows, and these were not people that we knew. These were just mostly other bands that were there, but there was like one guy that just showed up, and he was like, hey man, you guys need a place to stay? And we were like, sure, you know, which is like maybe questionable, but I mean, there were like 5 of us. This was also like right after we graduated high school, so we're still pretty young, but there were, you know, 5 of us. There was Bill, who was a good amount older, and everybody was chill. Okay, it ended up being fine. But it was just interesting. It was an interesting time, all right? Because the first guy whose house that we stayed at was like, he was like a therapist, I think. But he was like this punk rock dude. He was an interesting guy. And he had this guy who was like a homeless guy who was letting crash at his place, which was nice, you know. But like this guy would basically, I guess, travel around and just kind of like, he was kind of like this hippy dippy dude. He was a pretty young guy in good shape, and we go in and he's just playing Dark Souls. Like, so he's like, oh hey man, like you know, I'm letting these guys crash here for the night. They're in a band, they played a show, they were pretty good. So they're just gonna be crashing here. And he's like, oh, cool dude. And so, you know, we're sitting down. The guy who's putting us up kind of goes off and does his own thing for a bit. But we're talking to this other guy who's staying there. And we're like, oh, you know, what's your name? And he's like, oh, my name's Phi. And we're like he's a white guy, by the way, with like dreadlocks, you know. And we're like, oh, like, how do you spell that? And he's like, I just use like the symbol, like phi, you know, like the Latin symbol, dude. And then we're like, cool, great, you know, awesome stuff, man. But he was a super chill guy. He was just, you know, getting down with some Dark Souls, man, you know, having a good time. And like, we played, I remember at the time, Cards Against Humanity was kind of a new thing, you know. And so we played Cards Against Humanity that night. Some other people, some of their friends came over, and it was pretty fun. You know, we were chilling. I didn't sleep inside. I was always paranoid that our equipment was going to get stolen. And I mean, like, looking back on it, it's like, what would being in the car do to really help the situation? I mean, I guess, I don't know, it's a deterrent, right? But I would basically every night, no matter what, even if we were staying at somebody's place, I would sleep in the van just in the basically just so that people wouldn't steal our shit, because I was just paranoid. Didn't want people getting their grubby mitts on my trumpet, right? But there you go. So, you know, we're hanging out, we're having a good time, and then I go and sleep in the fucking van, and then we get up in the morning, and I think the dude made us breakfast. Super chill guy. He's like, hey man, like, good luck with the rest of your tour. We're like, hell yeah, dude, take it easy. And it was a totally good experience. Awesome stuff. And then later we stayed at this band's house. What was interesting is they were like a band. All right, they played this show, and they were pretty well known locally, I think. But they all like rented a house together, so it was a pretty big house. And they were like, "Oh yeah, come kick it at our place. It's all good." And so like we went over there and we were chilling out. And I remember like we found one of the dudes played Magic, so we broke into his decks. And he's like, "Oh yeah, man, let's play some Magic." So he's playing Magic over there. One of these other dudes was kind of a weird guy who's like really into weird media, and he was showing us this like movie that was like Pool Boy 2 or some shit like that. There's just this awful movie. He's like, dude, this is so sick, man. So we watched Pool Boy 2. Sounds like Schoolboy Q, but it was Pool Boy 2, I believe. And it was god awful. That's what I remember from that place. But once again, chill people. We had a good time. It was good stuff. One of the weird things about this whole thing, though, by the way, was that I gotta bring up the fucking list of names again here. James, okay, his ex was basically like stalking us down the coast. All right, so he had this ex-girlfriend who was like kind of insane. All right, she was like a year older than him or whatever, so she'd already graduated from high school. But she basically, what she did is she went to like half of our shows when we were playing them all the way down the fucking coast. And it was just so bizarre. And I don't remember, I don't remember what the fuck. She was like, she might have even been like dating somebody else at the time, and I don't remember the exact fucking excuse she was using as to why she was doing this, but she'd basically like show up to our shows and then like ignore us. I don't know, man. I don't know. She was fucking weird. I think that at one point she'd like threatened James with a knife while they were dating, but James was kind of a shithead about it as well, and it was kind of like, even though he knew that she was fucking insane and still crazy for him, he'd still like go and sleep with her, even though you know, they didn't want to date. So you know, in a certain way, he was prolonging this, and it was just not good. All right, but it was odd. I was just like, oh my god, is this bitch gonna be at this fucking show again? It's gonna be awkward. So she was kind of haunting our tour. So that was a weird dynamic. On top of this, we were pretty much broke. So what we would do, like I said, we were sleeping in fucking Walmart parking lots and shit. What we would do a lot of our times, like during the day, is we'd go to thrift stores and like down the coast and just try to find weird shit. Because all of Jerry, Michael, and James loved thrifting. So they'd kind of like buy some interesting things. That was pretty fun, honestly, just kind of going down and looking through stuff. I mean, honestly, like just any time that you're spending with your friends doing weird shit is a good time, usually. Doing that, driving around, obviously, doing a lot of driving, and then stopping at a lot of Starbucks, all right? And what we would do is we just kind of chill there for like hours, playing cards, mostly playing hearts. That's actually where Michael taught me how to shuffle a deck properly. So I learned how to shuffle a deck on that tour. But we would play hearts a lot, and that's where my love of the game Hearts came from as well. So it was a good time. It was a good time. It was an interesting thing. On the way back, I think one of our last shows, we played a house show at this party where we actually ended up playing with that local band that initially inspired my bandmates to switch to ska. And it was interesting because, I mean, they were still good, but the lead singer, man, that guy was not looking good. And it's because we found out that he'd gotten addicted to heroin, which is no good. And he was super gaunt, just had dark bags under his eyes. This looked like shit. All right. And unfortunately became a heroin addict. I don't know where that guy's at now. Haven't kept up with him, but that was a little bit of a bummer, you know. House show, though, overall was pretty fun. It was basically like play the show and then you get a party afterwards and just hang out. Of course, I was kind of awkward, you know, so I was like fucking 18 or 19 at the time, you know, and I didn't drink, and all that shit, so, and I didn't know any of these people, so we're doing our best. But, like, one of the nice things about playing house shows, it's like, you always have something to talk about with people because you just played a show. They're like, oh, dude, you're the trumpet guy, and I'm like, I am indeed. It'd kind of be like a jumping off point, which would make it kind of easier to socialize, that sort of a thing. But yeah, overall tour was pretty damn fun. And that was kind of the big last hurrah, I would say. Because then after that, you know, I ended up going to college. Both Michael and I ended up going to the same college. We became roommates after a certain point in time. And but the problem was that in high school, the way we would practice is we basically like show up at James's house, practice for maybe like a half hour or 45 minutes, and then basically dick around the rest of the time. And it wasn't a big deal because we all lived pretty close. But Michael and I were going to school. It was in-state, okay? But we'd have to bus down because we didn't have a fucking car. At least I didn't. And so it would take us like an hour to an hour and 30 minutes to get down there. And they'd still want to do the same thing where it's like practice for like 45 minutes and then dick around, and then we'd have to bus all the way back up, you know? And it was like late at night, we're doing it weeknights and shit, and it was just like, I'm trying to stay on top of my college studies, and so it just wasn't really working out. So basically what ended up happening was at this point, I was the only horn left, you know? We were moving more in a hardcore direction, you know, less ska, more hardcore punk, hardcore sound anyway. When I'm saying hardcore, I think about like Title Fight, I would say, where it's kind of like got these post-rock elements as well, you know, post-hardcore sort of things, you know. Heading in that direction. At the same time, I am not wanting to go to practice all that often because it is a huge time commitment that I'm not really getting much out of. I can't really practice up at, you know, college because I'm in the dorms, you know. I could go maybe book a room somewhere and practice, but I'm not fucking doing that. And so I just stopped replying to, you know, Jerry when he'd ask us to practice, you know, that sort of thing. And so basically the writing was on the wall. At a certain point, Jerry was like, okay, you're out of the band, you know, because I was not responding to Jerry when he'd want to practice. I'm the only horn left. You know, it just wasn't going to work out. So I was like, yep, makes sense, totally get it. And I was kind of there anyway. I kind of quiet quit the band, we'll say. And then I was just focusing on, you know, college and that sort of stuff from then on. But yeah, I was in the band for like, you know, 4 or 5 years. It was a fun time. It was an interesting time. I think I learned a lot from it, you know. Met some interesting people, you know. So mostly solidified my friendship with Michael, as I said, you know. We're still good buds, still stay in touch. It's a good time. But it'll be interesting to see the rest. I think both James and Jerry will be at the wedding, so it'll be fun catching up with them. I think James does tattoos now, which is pretty cool. I don't know what the fuck Jerry's up to. He's kind of does odd jobs and shit, but should be good. Should be good to catch up. But on top of that, I learned to be a little more confident. So like a lot of times when I play these shows, let me give you the kind of a rundown of a typical show, okay? What I would do, so basically no matter how many shows we played, I would still get nervous, okay? No matter what the show was, because you're getting up on stage in front of all these people, and you don't know what's going to happen necessarily, right? But it was like, you know, it's just like, I'm anxious every time, but you gotta kind of just expose yourself to that sort of a thing over and over and over again. And I think that just gave me a lot of confidence, and it helped me with other shit as well. I became a better presenter because I'm used to getting up in front of people and putting yourself out there, you know? And so I'd bring a big fucking jug of water up with me. Like, if you go to your local, like, Safeway or, you know, whatever, local grocery store, you know those, like, they used to be $1. I don't know what they are now because I haven't bought one in a while, but, like, $1 jugs of water, right? I would just fill one of those up before a show, bring it up with me on stage, and I'd basically take lots of drinks out of this for 2 reasons. You know, I'm nervous. Being nervous dries your mouth out, and you need a lot of saliva when you're playing trumpet, okay? It would be hot as fuck up on stage, really hot. You got these, you know, bright lights shining on you. It's just, there's a fuckload of people in one small area, you know? It's hot. And I mean, I got to be playing this instrument, right? And on top of that, you know, just getting nervous. It's kind of a nervous tick of mine anyway when I'm on stage to just be drinking water, I would say, at these shows. Because a lot of the times, you know, I'd play trumpet and there'd be kind of long periods of time between when I need to, not long periods of time, but I'd say, like, you know, sometimes there'd be maybe 20 seconds where I'm not playing, right? And so it's like, what do I do with myself in that time? Let me just pick up this giant jug of water and drink it. So I'd basically, within, like, I would play like maybe 45-minute sets a lot of the time. Within that 45 minutes, I would drink an entire gallon of water. So what would happen is we'd play our bit, we'd play our set, you know, and it'd go pretty well. I'd be feeling good. Every time we'd get done with it, I'm feeling good, you know? Because people, by and large, were always positive afterwards. They're like, hell yeah, you guys were sick, you know? That sort of a thing, which was always fun. But on top of that, I'm feeling like I gotta piss for the rest of the night. So basically it'd be like, all right, let's listen to the rest of the bands. I'm relaxed now. We've gotten it out of the way. We're usually the opener, so I can just enjoy the rest of the night. But I'd spend maybe, you know, 40% of the time in the bathroom pissing over and over again, pissing out that gallon of water, you know. But nobody could accuse me of being dehydrated, because I was not. But yeah, I just think that, you know, doing that gave me confidence and made me better at public speaking, you know, which is a big part of why I've started this channel, I would say. I mean, I don't know, I feel confident talking, you know. Obviously talking in videos is different than talking in front of a bunch of people, you know, but it's the same kind of skill set. It's just being comfortable putting yourself out there, and I think that there was a lot of valuable shit that I got out of being in the band. I mean, on top of that, there was just other fun stuff. We sold merch, you know, so we're making t-shirts. James's stepdad had a bunch of t-shirt making equipment, like he had silk screens or whatever, and so we'd make our own stuff in James's garage, you know. There was cool stuff we were doing. It was a fun time. We were making these CDs. We're trying to sell CDs, selling tickets, you know, going to recording studios. It was just a really cool experience, and I'm really glad I did it. Obviously, nothing came out of that. The rest of the guys, they still play music every once in a while, I think, but obviously didn't keep up the band. I don't know exactly when they stopped the band in full, but yeah, it was a good time. It was a cool experience. If you're thinking about, you know, starting up a band, hell yeah, do it if you got the time. It's a good time, you know. And honestly, I kind of want to get back into playing some music. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I want to do, you know, but right now I'm unemployed, so maybe I could pick that up as a potential hobby. I want to fill my free time with more and more, I guess, worthwhile shit, you know, things that bring me fulfillment. And, you know, less time with things that don't, you know, and I think that it'd be pretty fulfilling to pick up the old instrument again. I don't know if I'd pick up the trumpet again, you know, we'll see. I was thinking, I don't know, maybe drums potentially, or guitar or something like that, because actually one of my friends who was over at her place for a party last night, she was like, yeah, I got this drum set. You can probably take it if you just come and pick it up. And I'm like, that'd be kind of cool, you know, just learn the drums. I mean, there's a lot of value, I feel like, in learning drums too, because it's like, it's very mathy, you know, like, because it's, the rhythms get really complicated, you know, and you have to, there's a lot of hand-eye coordination shit as you're playing different parts with the different things. I'm terrible at it, but I think it might be beneficial to, like, learn how to do that or something. But If I can get a free drum set, fuck it. Yeah, I'll learn the drums. So I'll follow up with her on that. I'll keep you guys posted. But there you go. Yeah, good shit. I think that's a lot of it. That's most of it. This is like an hour-long video at this point. But hope you enjoyed the yap. So I will talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.